Welcome to Seekers and Shifters, where we talk to the world's foremost experts in personal growth and development and ask them everything we really want to know.
Hey there, Seekers and Shifters. It's Michelle, and I am here today with my friend Christina Providence. Christina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Providence. I am a movement educator, a holistic business mentor, and a Gestalt coach. And my overall specialty is working with high performers who have hit a wall and helping them feel like themselves again so they can get back on top of their game.
I love it. And you and I do very similar work, and I'm super excited to nerd all the way out with you about it. The high performers that have hit a wall that's my people too.
Yeah.
It is like the folks who have checked all the boxes in life and they did all the things that they were supposed to do, and then they hit this point, and often it does coincide a little bit with midlife. You know, we won't call it a midlife crisis, but a little bit with midlife, where they go, fuck, you know, I did everything I was supposed to do and I'm still maybe not fulfilled or not happy. And there's more to life than this, right? And so is that kind of where you come in as well?
Absolutely. I'd say it's more like a midlife awakening for a lot of us.
Oh, I like
that's what we want it to be, right? And the crisis, the darkest before the dawn. So that's my jam, and I think it's all hands on deck at this point. You know, I think the more of us in the space, the more different perspectives we have, the more energy we're feeding in together. I think there's a lot of us doing the work, and we can use as many as we can get.
I agree. And that's one of the things I love about the coaching space is there's not really such a sense of competition, because it's really like, we know, inherently there's a lot more people that need coaching, than there are coaches. So going on here. And the more of us, the better. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you got into this work.
Okay. So, wow, this story could come from anywhere and go anywhere. So I have a couple different key things in my background that brought me to coaching. The first is probably my background in dance. So I have an MFA in dance performance, and I have had a business as a Pilates instructor and a Pilates studio for over 20 years at this point. And so really, I would say my sort of foundation is in embodiment. And my first language, like all of us, my first language is movement. But unlike most of the people I work with, I've been privileged, fortunate, and also weird enough to kind of stay in that world. And now at the age of 50, where I feel like I'm getting to the point where I can meet the rest of the world where they are in terms of language and thinking, and I have something, you know, I've in working with my Pilates clients, have been able to evolve the embodiment piece all the way through to bringing new concepts into awareness and taking action based on a more holistic approach. So really, whatever it is, whether someone wants to create a new business, which is my specialty, or change careers, or just feel a little more grounded and comfortable navigating a life transition. I think one of the pieces that's always necessary, but getting more and more important and urgent in our digital world, is really being able to access our whole selves, and especially that embodied aspect of ourselves. And so I think I came to that through my background in dance. And then the other couple of pieces are, I also, for 20 years, had a career. My day job while I was working as a dancer was in the test prep industry. So I worked around the world: Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, New York City, Washington, D.C., Istanbul, and Bangkok, teaching mostly kids how to perform well on the SAT, GRE, GMAT, a little bit of LSAT, a little bit of MCAT. And so that was a lot of sort of gamifying and hacking the system. And I worked as a program director in that company. So that's where I got my business, well, not my business chops, but my director style chops, my management chops. So I did that at the same time that I was dancing and traveling as a dancer. And then once I started my business, I worked as a Pilates instructor for the first probably 15 years. And then I was sort of on the cusp of middle age. My family was going through some health issues. And I asked a friend of mine to teach me some things I could do to help support some of my family members while they were going through some health issues. And this was back in about 2009. And I was, at that time, really kind of your stereotypical high performer, like a workout was a workout. I didn't really know how to slow down. And I've been hyperactive my whole life, so I didn't really want to slow down. But I wanted to be able to support some of my family members through more of a healing process and a support process. And so my friend, Lori Goof, who is a brilliant Reiki master and therapeutic yoga instructor, I was working side by side with her at the time, and I asked her if she would show me a few things. And she was like, sure, I'll just attune you for Reiki. And at the time I was like, I sort of felt like, sure, I'll just wave this magic wand over you and it'll be great. I was like, whatever, it's Lori. I'll do whatever she says. Like, if she said, stand on your head and twiddle your toes, like, I'd be like, okay, fine. That sounds fun. But, so she attuned me for Reiki, and it was literally like somebody flipped a light switch. It kind of blew me out of the water because I actually did have a little bit of background in energy work at the time, but I was kind of on the fence. Like, is this real, or, is it just meditation? And the sort of impact of my entry into Reiki was so powerful that I really was like, okay, I've got to figure out what's going on here. And I immediately started practicing and training and apprenticed with Lori for a couple of years. And fast forward to now, and I'm now an energy worker of 30 plus years, teaching Reiki master. I also practice a system called nervous system energy work. And I think overall, most of my work comes together in that system because everything is energy, right? It's like, so we can really frame it in that way however we want. But that has been the most effective and impactful, I'd say overall, the most effective and impactful set of tools in my toolbox over the years.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I started learning any energy work in the last few years. And so I certainly haven't been doing it 30 years like you have. I'm a novice at it. But boy, talk about a game changer and a life changer for yourself and for others. A common thread on this podcast is that we heal ourselves before we heal others. I want to pull in something you said about everything is energy, and I want to highlight that and pull that out for anybody listening, because for me that was a transformational, fundamental concept that allowed me to switch from my cynical brain of like, what is this bullshit, to, like these people are crazy, to, oh, you know what? That actually makes sense. I know scientifically, we know that everything is energy. We learned in school that, like this desk is not actually solid. It's actually made up of moving energetic particles, and that everything. And so once I started to get my head around everything as energy, and then of course, when energy moves, things change. Then, concepts like, oh, you can create your own reality started to become a lot more feasible in my mind. Right. And so, and I know you're constantly working with folks on a journey too, of that might come in and go like, what is that shit? And you kind of meet people where they are and say, well, think about it this way, or think about it that way. So how do you explain that everything is energy concept, and then bridge it to, and therefore we can manipulate energy and change how we feel and change what we experience and change our realities?
Yeah. So I have several different frameworks that I use depending on who I'm talking to and what they're interested in. Probably the most common framework I use is just about balance, that, we all know that we do better, feel better, when we're in balance. And so you don't have to believe anything to experience that. And, so I would say starting from what is it that supports you and helps bring you back into balance so that you can feel like yourself. And typically, if I'm working with a client or speaking to someone else, I would kind of want to know where they're coming from before I start pitching or preaching anything to them, you know. But from a conceptual point of view, the first is to know that energy, the basic definition of energy is the capacity to do work. That's all you need to know. So, you know, a lot of the language that we use, especially in the personal development space around energy, is really metaphorical. And so if you're talking to someone who's looking for a literal explanation and you're coming from a metaphorical understanding, then that's the first place to get clear. And generally speaking, like, I don't feel a lot of pressure to explain things scientifically that don't have a scientific explanation. You know, the whole principle of science is curiosity, seeking, exploring, gathering data, and there wouldn't be any science if we didn't have unanswered questions. So there's a whole lot that we don't know, but we're all on the same side of looking for ways to support ourselves, support each other, support our communities, our planet, whatever it is, our systems, our organizations, to be able to do essentially better work, to live more comfortably, for, you know, to alleviate suffering. And so, you know, that takes work. So work takes energy. So that's kind of where I start, is that basic definition that energy is the capacity to do work. And then, yeah. And then there's a couple other layers that I use. So there's a book that I read back in 2010, and I still lean on it quite a bit. It's, called The Power of Full Engagement by Tony Schwartz and Jim Lair. And they worked with athletes for years and years, top high performing athletes. And, they had a coaching business. Now it's a organizational development business called the Energy Project. But, they have some really clear, straightforward definitions around energy. And, one of the frames I use with my students a lot is the basic definition of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy, where physical energy in a human is we eat food, we burn that food for fuel, and that produces energy. And then that physical energy allows us to develop mental or emotional energy, which is the ability to transform threat into challenge. And then physical emotional energy allows us to develop mental energy, which is appropriate optimism and intellectual clarity. And then from there, we develop spiritual energy, which is a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. And I think where the divide happens in conversations is often at that level of spiritual energy, because, you know, in the personal development world or the energy work world, a lot of the time we're talking about these so-called forces that really, like, these are beliefs. This is like, it's metaphysical. It's above it's outside of the literal. It's metaphorical. It's theoretical. Some of it's just made up stories. And, we can't, like, trying to make up a pseudoscientific explanation for something that's not scientific doesn't play with someone who's coming from a skeptical perspective. And so coming from the perspective of, this is just what we do to help ourselves feel better. And, you know, applying whatever principles, values, ethics, morals you would normally apply from there. So, you know, for me, for example, I come from a perspective that I don't believe in imposing my beliefs on other people, and I don't want other people imposing their beliefs on me. So I'm not going to tell somebody that this way that I have of experiencing energy or experiencing the world is the one and only truth. I'll share it if invited and be curious about the other side. And I think that type of perspective and those sort of just really basic foundational pieces of clarity can help people understand the language of energy. And then what happens is you find where you have something in common, and then you just start jamming in that, whatever your shared language and shared experience is.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're an NLP person at all, but that's a lot of an NLP concept is, right? Where like we meet somebody where they are, we're flexible communicators, and we're going to up conceptually until we get to something we can agree on. We all want to be happy. And then we can bring it down and deal with the ways that we disagree. Something you said there was very interesting, which is, I'm not going to impose my beliefs on others. I don't want them to impose their beliefs on me. Sure, respecting other people's worldview, again, another tenet there of NLP. And I do think it's okay to say, this is not me imposing my belief on somebody. If I say, yeah, but this is my truth and this is how I feel about it. And so I want to be heard on the way that I perceive it. And if somebody's saying, yeah, but you're wrong, if we can't at least get to the point in the conversation where, hey, we perceive things differently and that's okay, then it's probably not going anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah. And you and I also both work in sales, and I love sales. It's my favorite thing to teach and coach. And I, like one of the reasons I like it, and one of the basic principles I use in sales is the same as I would use in talking to somebody about energy, which is that I'm not here to convince somebody who's not interested. So the same thing with that. Like if somebody's like, oh no, you're wrong, or they're just looking to discredit what I have to say, or, they're coming from a place of contempt or disrespect, or just being a dick, like I don't have time. Like nobody has time for that. Like I'm interested in having the conversation and sharing the work with people who are kind of on the same page as me in some way. And, for the people who aren't, they can go hang out with somebody else. And also something you said actually made me think of something, which is that in terms of respecting beliefs, I just posted a meme on my Facebook page about like, just saying that we agree to disagree doesn't extend to being, racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic. Like there are definite lines where I'm like, I'm not an agree to disagree person, but it is, along those lines, but it is a question of what's going to be most useful. Is it going to be to kind of go in for the kill or go in for the fight, so to speak, or to just kind of back off? And depending on the situation, my partner says, let the internet take care of it. When I get mad, he's like, back off, just go walk away. Just let the internet take care of it.
I love that. I had to really, when I first started studying NLP, that concept of respecting everyone's worldview, was rubbed up against me, right? It triggered me a little bit because I came from the background of being a progressive, like an activist, right? And working in politics my whole life. And so it was like, well, I can't respect somebody's worldview if they're transphobic, like you said, for instance. And then when I broke it down and the instructor said, no, we didn't say agree with the worldview. We said respect the worldview. And then we need to break out the difference between respect and agree. And when it broke down into what I'm respecting is the fact that you came to what you came to based on where you grew up, who you're surrounded by, what you're reading on the internet, what church you go to, what your parents thought, what your friends were saying. And just like me, and I formed my opinions the very same way. And so I can't look at you and say, no, you're an idiot, when had I lived your life, I might feel the same way you did about things, including bigotry things. That's a hard, uncomfortable concept, but I might be just as bigoted had I lived that same person's life. I learned a lot about trans folks when my partner came out as trans, and I lived with a trans partner for years, right? And this is not something I'm going to talk about extensively because I want to respect her privacy now. And this is it's an ex partner. So I want to respect the privacy of an ex. But I will say I came in, benevolent, right? Like I wasn't bigoted toward trans people, but I sure as hell didn't know what I didn't know about it. And so when folks are on the internet saying, oh, trans girls shouldn't play women's sports, that's not fair, I have to realize, I didn't know how estrogen therapy affected a trans woman's body, how that actually diminishes your muscle tone, how that actually creates a body that's similar to a cis woman's. Like I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't watched that happen in front of my eyes over a period of years. And so how can I expect somebody else to know that? So I don't get angry at ignorance anymore. I try to give people grace in the same way that I want grace around all the things that I'm ignorant about, which is lots, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is actually one of the things I love about this line and level of work is that, a big chunk of my clients are community organizers, activists, they're in politics, and they have the desire and the skill set to go in there and have those conversations from all kinds of points of view and in all kinds of environments. And it's just that's not what I like to do. I don't like to debate. I don't like to argue. I can handle conflict, but it's not what I like to do. I'd rather collaborate or walk away and read a book instead. So, but there are people who love that and who are good at it. And so from my perspective, I can have a practice where I support a clientele, helping them get their needs met, helping them be supported, helping them fill their own cup, so then they can go out there and do that work without being completely drained by the work. And I just feel like that's leverage, where I could maybe go in and have one argument that pisses me off and ruins my day. Instead, I can spend that day serving 10 different people who then will go out and have those arguments in a way that is maybe constructive and hopefully lights them up rather than draining them. So it's really about alignment and leverage for me.
Well, absolutely. And we know as we do more and more of our personal development work, that if I'm triggered by something else that somebody's saying, that's me, right? That's something I need to work on. Like, why do I care? Because if I didn't have a charge on it, it wouldn't upset me in any way. It would just be like, oh, that person thinks totally differently of me than I do. That's okay. Whatever. There's something in it that's a charge, whether it's a shadow and it's actually something I don't like about myself that I'm projecting onto them, or they've triggered some kind of childhood trauma or something. There's something worthy of exploring. And so when you start that process of, oh, every time I get a little triggered, instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to, shut that down. Yeah. Oh, that's a cool little red flag that's waving. That yeah. You're a nerd when you start getting excited about getting triggered. Like, oh, cool. Something to explore, something to pull on here. I'm going to learn more about myself today.
For sure.
Well, I release this bullshit, right? And then I'm going to come out a little more Buddha-like tomorrow, right? None of us are Buddha. Yeah, but I'm gonna inch toward it a little bit every day. Yeah. That's my favorite thing about aging, by the way, is getting a little more Buddha-like every day. Do you feel like you're getting more Buddha-like as you age?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I don't know if I would say Buddha-like, but I definitely am, like, things don't bother me like they used to. This is so funny because I teach at Ohio State. I'm a professor or a visiting lecturer this year. And, so I get to hang out with the students, a lot. And there's this whole, like, I gave them this little talk the other day about taking risks because I teach in the dance department. And so essentially, part of my job is they're dance majors. They're not going to get anywhere if they don't take risks. Right. So and they are scared. They're all scared, about life. And I'm like, look, you can make a lot of mistakes in your 20s and 30s and you'll have tons of time to clean them up. I typically say, do your best to stay out of prison, like don't hurt anybody, but you have a lot of leeway. And, now I forget why I'm telling you this story.
We were talking about becoming more Buddha-like as you age.
Oh, more Buddha-like. So I was like, go for it. And I'm like, we're all going to end up in the same place. If we're lucky enough, we're going to end up like all wrinkled and, so like quit, like just, and they're all so beautiful, like the thing is, I have never in 20 plus years of teaching have not had a student who wasn't absolutely gorgeous. And I remember like how much bandwidth that took up when I was younger.
Yeah, you just looking in the mirror, just being all
and like finding all the flaws and everything. And it's so much better now. Like, not that it's not a thing, but it's just, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't get in there like it used to. And I think, it's like we have so many more years under our belt, so to speak. It's like, there's just a lot more perspective that comes with that. And also for those of us who've been fortunate to have the resources and to have the support and to do the healing and the recovery and the exploration, life does get better and better. Can get better and better. And so, yeah, I mean, knock on wood, like really enjoying midlife so far.
It's like they say, it's like you go from caring what other people think about you to not caring what other people think about you to realizing that other people aren't thinking about you.
Right. Yeah.
And then people like you and me are in the business of trying to make sure they are thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, we're so obnoxious on the internet, friends. Like, it's kind of our job. Right? But it's, because they're not. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the thing is, I've gotten so much more curious about other people as I've gotten older. Like, there's this thing, I guess it doesn't matter which sort of branch of psychology or coaching you come from, but in Gestalt, Gestalt has a whole, aspect of the work about the relationship between self and other. And actually the piece that drew me to Gestalt was that it related to something that I had learned before in my movement practice, which was including yourself in your experience of your environment. And I think we live in a culture where it's either me or like I can attend to you or I can attend to myself. And Gestalt and movement practices ask us to include ourselves and to stay present with ourselves while we're relating to the other people. And as I've gotten better and better and more skilled at staying present with myself, it allows me to take in other people more fully and more skillfully. And I think that's probably my favorite skill set that I've picked up through my life, is that ability to not just to stay curious, but to listen with all cylinders, to listen at different levels, to be able to tune my listening to people's different ways of communicating. And, just that it's like a relief to like kind of get out of my own head that way and get out of my own way that way and be able to relate to people more, like in a more interesting way. And I think that's another piece of midlife that just, it's awesome. It turns me on. Life is great. When you can actually have relationships and be fully present in them.
Well, and this is why I love sales. This is why you love sales. Like, to me, and we both teach sales, and we probably both teach a lot of people who are afraid to do sales and think sales is icky and sleazy and they don't like it and they don't want to do, and I do that all the time, where my clients will be sending me people that work for them and saying, teach my staff how to sell. And the staff is like, I was like, okay, that's where we're starting. But it's like, this is so fun because we get to make new friends and there's no pressure on it because we're just figuring out if it's right or it's wrong. And if it's right, like, this is the solution, great. But it's all about being curious. It's all about making new friends. As coaches and practitioners, we can fall into a trap, and we know, of course, we're holding space, we're curious, and we want to but what really starts to happen after you do it for years and years and years and years and years is, okay, people have these 5 core wounds and they're not enough, or they're not good enough, or they're too much, and your brain starts to go, okay, this is a too much one. This is a not good enough one. This is mom. This is dad. This is where you could just be like, almost like you're psychic. Okay. So, what happened with your mom when you were 3? Because that's what, about not being good enough. And they're like, how did you know? And you're just like, yeah, cause it's, it's a pattern. And the challenge in that of, okay, even though my brain is doing that, and it's connecting the dots and it's saying, this is probably what's going on with this person, to say, yeah, but I might be wrong. So let me not assume that. And I might be right. And we'll find out, but let's actually hold space. Let's actually ask questions. Let's just not ask questions to try to get someone where we think they ought to go.
Right. Yeah. And from a Gestalt perspective, again, we don't necessarily go dig into the background in that same way. We talk more about how are things showing up in the here and now, and then listen to, let the person tell the story and have the experience of telling the story in the present. And so I've really kind of learned to, I wouldn't say switch off that storytelling about oh, I wonder what happened to this person when they were 3, but much more to be present with, some of us would say with the vibration, right? Or with the full experience of being with that person in this moment. You and I are here in this moment, and I feel my butt in the seat, and I feel I feel my feet on the floor, one of my feet, and I can see the flowering tree out the window, and like really being, some of us would say mindful about it. I prefer embodied about it. I like the full physical sensation of it. And I think again, like bringing it back into the present and being fully present allows us to be open and available for not just what we're hearing, but also, like you said earlier, our responses in the moment. Oh, I feel that sort of twinge in my gut, or, oh, I feel myself leaning forward, or I see that person's corners of the mouth turning up. I wonder what's going on there. Are they happy? Are they cynical? And then just really getting into that moment to moment experience, I think it's like it brings us back alive again and gets us, out of the sort of perseveration, overthinking, spinning in circles that can happen, that detachment, unhealthy detachment that happens, I think it happens in life, but it happens very critically in the digital space, or can. And if we don't have awareness underneath that, then it can be really damaging. But just bringing a little bit of awareness to that experience, whatever it is, can really shift the game,
Yeah. And that technique that you're talking about, I'm in the chair right now. I can see my feet are on the ground. So important for entrepreneurs. I just want to highlight this for entrepreneurs listening. We both coach entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs get freaked the fuck out all the time. Like, it's a roller coaster. And I got to dopamine because I got to sale. And then, oh my God, the bills are due and I don't know how I'm going to pay them by the end of the week and everything. Like, how am I going to make payroll? And you're freaking out and your nervous system is going off as if you're being chased by a tiger. And sometimes it's just, hey, look around. Where are you right now? Oh, I'm in my chair. Okay. Are there any tigers? No. Okay, cool. Actually, in this moment right now, everything's going to be okay. You can say, if I were afraid about, am I going to be able to pay my bills at the end of the week? Nobody's coming to break my legs. I don't owe money to the mafia. I promise. I'm saying it publicly. I don't know, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And so many of us, ironically, are freaking out from such a place of comfort.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're sitting in the most comfortable spots. So the fact that we're even in a position to be able to have these types of problems often speaks to how comfortable we are. And so, having to bring people just right back to just get present. And it's so hard for entrepreneurs to learn how to get present. It's easy to get pregnant. But to learn how to get present, because because we're always thinking about, oh God, what about this, and that? And to be an entrepreneur, to be really good at it, you're often having to think through scenarios A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And I need to know exactly what I'm going to do if this happens or that happens. And I need to pull in my past experience. So I'm in the past, I'm in the future, I'm all over the fucking place. And oh my God, I would be dead by now, literally, of a stress heart attack if I hadn't learned how to take 5 fucking minutes a day to just say with myself.
You're bringing up something that I think is really important to call out when we're talking to and with entrepreneurs, which is that so much of the skill of entrepreneurship is really developmental. And my specialty is working with emerging entrepreneurs. So I work with a lot of, especially women who have been in corporate careers. Not all of them have been in corporate careers, but a lot of people who are launching as a consultant or a coach in the first, say, 3 to 5 years of their building a practice. And and I know that there's so much about having your own practice that's literally the opposite of working in a corporate environment. And you can't imagine how different it is until you live it. And so people are bumping up against that in the very beginning. And so often the sort of both the thinking response and also just the lizard brain response is, I'm doing something wrong. There's something wrong with me. And it's no, you're just having an experience and it's actually quite a normal experience, but you don't get the discernment. You don't get the judgment to be able to make a decision that you can trust until you've just been through it a few times. And so a lot of the job is just learning. First, it's surviving, and then it's learning to kind of enjoy the ride and thrive in the ride. But it never gets to the point where you're like, oh yeah, I have this down. I know exactly. Well, if it gets to that point, you can be confident that like the next curveball is right around the corner.
Yeah, it's going to happen. And like, this is like amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
COVID happened. I was like, oh, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming. Shit.
Yeah.
Life's going to shift it. There's this book that I love, and I don't know if you know this book, but it's called Reboot by Jerry Colonna. And it's about this concept of finding equanimity as an entrepreneur and getting yourself off of the roller coaster emotionally, becoming more Buddha-like as an entrepreneur. And really at the fundamental concept, untying your sense of self-worth from what your business is doing, which is so important because otherwise it's so dangerous. Like you said, you can know everything there is to know about business, and circumstances can tank your business. You have to know that no matter what happens with your business, that you're still worthy as a person, you're still good, you're still smart, you're still amazing. And boy, do people get that tied in badly, and it can be really, really dangerous. I mean, that's where we see even, suicide numbers among entrepreneurs. Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that for a second? Nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about, you see the phenom entrepreneurs and everybody who's on the cover of Inc. magazine or Entrepreneur magazine. And often they're very young, and the average entrepreneur that's successful. First of all, number one successful time to start a business is 45, not
Sweet.
25.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You got the experience and you still got some energy to do it. Right. And you never see 45 and 55 and 65-year-old entrepreneurs on the covers of these magazines, but that's who's actually statistically successful. Second of all, there's these horrible mental health outcome statistics for entrepreneurs that nobody talks about. And when I came across that, I was like, okay, this is now the mission of my work, because I love entrepreneurs and I want to keep entrepreneurs safe and healthy. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly how I came to coaching, because back in like the 2010s, when I was still building my Pilates business, it was, first of all, what I didn't know then was that I had a business model that wasn't sustainable, because it really rested on physical labor on my part. And I went into it thinking, like, you're young. I was a dancer. Like, I didn't realize what it was going to be like getting older and trying to build a business based on my own individual physical labor. So that was, one thread of it. Another thread was how much time and energy it takes to be in the creative process of running the business. As an entrepreneur, personally, my sort of pattern is I need a lot of unscheduled time. Even when I was running a Pilates studio that you wouldn't think would be that complicated or that creative, I needed a lot of unscheduled time to be at my best, to be present. And I had built a business model that required me to be doing client work in order to be profitable. And it wasn't like, it was like 2 or 3 years in, and I was just like, how am I going to do this? But I didn't have the background to really know what was going on. And my business mentors, I had some wonderful business mentors, but none of them were embodied entrepreneurs. So they were just like, well, just, do your sales, do your marketing. And I'm like, but I'm exhausted. Like, I was so burned out, I ended up in medical treatment. And furthermore, I now know, I'm neurodivergent AF, and we're now getting so much more information about how, what the comorbidities are of different neurodivergences. And a lot of the fatigue and sort of like brain fog that I was experiencing, I can now chalk up to my neurodivergence. And knowing what I now know, I can actually leverage those same traits that I have, because basically I just have a very creative, divergent thinking brain that is extremely effective when it comes to visionary work and connecting with people and connecting the dots across things that don't make sense to other people. But if I'm in the studio teaching 40 hours a week, my brain is not working in its own genius zone. And so what was happening for me was that I was just really uncomfortable and not at my best. And I would be sitting in front of, my financial reports and things like that, which I like math. I like finances. I was very stunned to realize how uncomfortable I was looking at that stuff. And my brain would just shut down. I would get migraines and I would be like, I know this is psychosomatic. I know this is not about a physical migraine. There's something going on beneath the surface. But I didn't know what it was yet. And so I went to therapists, I went to doctors, and they treated the symptoms and they treated the, made diagnoses, and it helped a little bit, but none of it clicked until I started working with coaches and I was like, there's something emotional going on here. That was as far as I could figure out. And finally I got into the hands of some good coaches and understood what was going on. And I say it like this was not a switch flipping like Reiki. This was like 10 years of work just to get to the other side of it. And it, by the way, very expensive. So the work we do is very privileged at this point, required a ton of resources. And long story short, I was like, why is no one helping with the emotional work of what we're doing here? And I realized like so much of it is because those of us who are working in the more creative, more embodied spaces are coming from a place of empathy and compassion and maybe conscious capitalism or whatever you want to call it. We're working in a model that's really on a leading edge. It's in a lot of ways in opposition to the capitalism that we grew up with. And all our business models are based on the old methods. Like it's a new frontier what the new methods are. And so there weren't and still aren't a lot of well-known tools and techniques to sort of merge the two between the mental work, the mental, emotional, whatever, merge the work between the mental and the emotional that we do to be, what I would say is maybe a purpose-driven entrepreneur or conscious capitalist.
And that's what we do now. I mean, that's what you do, and that's what I do, and that's what a lot of people, like you said, on the leading edge of the field are doing. And that's the way that everything is going, because, and I do think we can partially thank COVID for this, if we could thank it for anything. People started to realize that the old ways of working, where we were so on autopilot, were not working. You still see the bro marketers coming in, and I'm so sorry to generalize bro marketers. Some of you are my best friends, and we still see the bro marketers coming out and saying, well, just take a cold shower every day and get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what they're doing is they're teaching people how to dissociate, which is actually really, really unhealthy. And so you can stand in a cold shower or a cold plunge and you can be in your body and you can really feel that sensation. That's actually a great practice and a really healthy practice. But there's a difference between I'm going to do this associated and I'm going to do this to learn how to dissociate in a really healthy way. And I think that's so much of what you and I were taught, and a lot of people coming up were taught. And now people are starting to say, oh, we've got to do this completely differently, because it's not working, because society is breaking down, trying to do things the old way in the new world. So I'm excited about it. I mean, we're at time. I want to do like a whole nother 8 hours with you.
I'm in.
But yeah, I'm excited. We're on the edge of a new world here, and we're helping. So if people want your help, where can they find you?
Probably the quickest way is just to email me. It's Christina@theprovidencemethod.com. I've got a Facebook profile. I've got a Facebook group. It's called Fully Booked and Thriving. And I'm doing a free workshop May 10th about 6 shifts to bring in the buyers. So it's about evolving your business and your sales process to create more meaningful impact. So if that's something that people are interested in, just drop me an email, Christina@theprovidencemethod.com.
I love it. And as always, if you want to hang out with us and have weird conversations with weird people like this, come hang out with us in Seekers Club, seekersclub.org. Sign up. Find us. We're talking about weird shit like this all day, every day. And we're doing trainings about these exact topics for you, exclusive in there. So we would love to see you in there. Christina, thank you so much for being with us. It was so fun to have you. We'll definitely have to do another episode together soon. Really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks, Michelle. It's been really fun.
Bye, everybody.